we chatted over Twitter because I wanted to make what I did with the Air Force more professional, and try and bring that up so that it was good. It turned out that we literally lived a mile away from each other. So I went round for coffee one day and he was working for England and he said, "How do you fancy coming and do some bits and bobs with us for England?" And I was like, "I'll snap your hand off, thanks very much." I'm currently one of two kit managers that work with the England senior women's ladies team. Involved with that is basically ensuring that we have enough clothing and kit for all the players, all the staff, and then making sure that all the equipment we want on camp as well, be that balls, bibs, cones, mannequins. We look after transporting all of the equipment to and from every event as well. So it's kind of like it's a big jigsaw that we try and put together to ensure that we've got everything in the right place when we need it and where we want it. So a lot of planning goes into before an event to make sure that we've got what we need. So I've been working with England for about 4.5 years now. Previous to that, I was in the Air Force, and that's kind of how I got into being a kit manager. While I was in the Air Force, I played representative football for the Air Force, and then I got towards the end of not being able to play anymore or not being as good as I was. And there was an advertisement for a kit manager with the RAF development team, as it was then, which is now under 23s team. And I went for an interview for that and kind of got that, did that for a couple of years, then moved on to the RAF senior team, also did the combined services ladies team and the men's side as well. And then through that on Twitter, I started following a guy who was the kit man at West Brom at the time, and he also worked for England. We chatted over Twitter because I wanted to make what I did with the Air Force more professional, and try and bring that up so that it was good. It turned out that we literally lived a mile away from each other. So I went round for coffee one day and he was working for England and he said, "How do you fancy coming and do some bits and bobs with us for England?" And I was like, "I'll snap your hand off, thanks very much." And literally I started the first couple of things I ever did with England. I went away with a couple of the disability teams. So I went with the blind team, or been with the CP team to a couple of events as well. And then spent some time literally as just as a driver with some of the teams as well, just transporting some of the equipment to various different countries. So I was lucky enough to jump in kind of straight with the Lionesses there, and then eventually worked to the point where they say, "Well, we'll give you your own team." So I looked after the under 15 girls, as it was at the time, and I then went literally 15, 16, 17, so all the way through the age group with them, and then picked up an 18s boys ones as well. So we were doing 2 teams, and then literally I left the Air Force January 19, and for the rest of that season I picked up another team. So I had 3 teams. So I had under 17s girls, under 19s girls, and a boys 18s team. So literally going from event to event to event, which was great for me. And then at the end of that season I then picked up the Lionesses as one of my 2 teams. As an international one, you kind of get the best of both, because you're in camp sometimes and you have that contact with the players, and you have all the crack that you would have in a club and that kind of thing. But then it's not 24/7, almost 365 days a year. You get the balance of still having a kind of a proper outside of life, family life kind of thing. So you get the intensive being on camp and it's work, football. But then you get the little bit of downtime, which I don't think, and I can't say you do or you don't, because I've never worked in a club. And that was something for me as I left the Air Force, was like, oh, I'd really love to go and work in a club. And then I started to work for England. I was like, actually, I've probably got the better gig. And I think that's the thing that you find, is you've got a better work-life balance as an international kit man as you do necessarily in a club. Normally, pre-COVID, most camps are sort of 8 to 10 days long. So you're going to do a camp for 8 to 10 days, and then maybe some traveling time either side, depending on where we are. Because if it's within Europe, we will literally load the van and we'll drive there. And that's like as far down. I've been driven all the way down to Antalya in Turkey, and all the way up to sort of the top of Estonia and Finland as well. So if it's drivable, we'll take it, because it means we can take what we want and it doesn't cost as much as putting it on the plane. I think when you do it for the first time, you worry about it far too much. Not that we're nonchalant with it now, but I think when you first do it, it's very, or it could be like a millimeter out or something like that, and you're really, really precious about it. And I think even when if we're doing 23 shirts for a game, I think when you start with the first one, you're just looking to get your eye in and where the light is, and then as you go, you'll figure out, because on the back of the shirt, you won't really see unless you're up close. There is small lines and different patterns and things, and then as you go, you learn that actually, I can go off that as a marker and a guide and all the rest of it. But we do have that we've left in the top of our printer is some templates with spacings and just little things that we've made over time that we know work for us, so that the distance between, like if you're doing number 11, the distance between the two ones is the same, and then obviously, but then if you're doing a higher number like 23, you then got to move them out a little bit anyway because they're bigger numbers. But it's one of those things that the more you do it, the easier it becomes. I think in the beginning it's quite difficult, and the numbers aren't so bad, to be fair. It's names, and we're lucky that on the whole, the names will, I would say, probably 70% of the time already been printed on the shirts for us, so we're just putting the numbers on. Sometimes there's a change, and the names will have been printed on shirts and the squad might change, so we've got new players come in, and generally it's always a player with a really long name, and you've got to make that from individual letters, so then it's the time to space it correctly before you commit to doing it. So it can be a bit painstaking on some occasions to make sure you get that right. So with the senior teams, they always like to try and play 1 to 11 as a starting 11. So we won't often find that out until the night before the game, and sometimes it can be quite late. So it's then a case of we'll be ready and we'll set up ready to go, but we're literally just awaiting confirmation on who's going to be what number, and then we just got to go through the process of printing them and making sure we got the right size for the player in shorts and match shirt, and making sure that we printed. We normally print 2 of each, so that we've got one they wear and then a blood shirt, and then on match day we will set up the print station in another area of the dressing room in case it's like a really bad day or we've had extras that we need to do, so that if something happens we can make another one on the spot. It probably takes about 3 days to pack everything up. We'll go in and pack that all up, and then we'll double check that we've got everything. So that's packing all the individual staff bags, packing all the players' training kits, and checking the match kits and all the eventualities in case we change colours and things like that as well. Making sure we've got all of the equipment, balls, bibs, cones, mannequins, tactics boards, all of that kind of stuff. Making sure that we've got specific equipment that the S&C department want, making sure we've got all the medical stuff that they want as well, and any other specific requirements, and that's all then collated at Stafford and ready to be packed. So we've got 2 bays there at the minute waiting to be packed for the coming camp. We'll go in and pack that onto 2 vans tomorrow, and then go and set up at St George's Park, and then once we're at St George's Park we'll then have a drive around all the departments that don't have equipment at Stafford. So we'll go and speak to the analysts, the team ops department, and to the nutrition department, and get any extra bits from them that we haven't already got. So it starts off quite small, and you're looking at doing little bits, and by the end of it it's a huge amount of kit. So if you're looking, we're probably carrying the best part of 2.5-3 tons of kit around with us. Definitely forward planning and knowing where you're going all of the time and what's next in the program, especially when you're overseas, because sometimes we'll go to places and we will have looked in advance on Google Maps of where we're training, where the stadium is, how far it is from the hotel, what's the best route to get there, all those kind of things. And these are things that people don't, why are you doing that before we get there? Just so that when we get there we know, but we always get the times that they change. We had one in Portugal a couple of years ago. Literally I was walking out the door to go to training and they changed the training venue, and it was the complete opposite side of town. It was an extra 20 minutes to train in. It was this, that and the other, and I was like, okay, yeah, right, so we've got to deal with it. So it's planning ahead, so that when something, we always give ourselves plenty of time. People say to us, why do you always get to the stadium so early? So that if we've missed something or if we've done something wrong, we've got that time to rectify it ourselves, or if we really need to include somebody else who's not in the loop, in the Kitman loop, we can contact them back at the hotel and say, oh, we've forgotten such and such, can you bring it with you? And those kind of things. So that's one of the reasons that we always like to leave so early.